Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, fine Thursday morning, excuse me. How you doing?
Doing well. You know, it's been a nice week. I think this is the warmest we're going to have here today and tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit chilly again for our game on Saturday. But yeah, I think it's a good week. All the guys are back in. Today will be a full session. You know, it's always weird in those international breaks when the guys are gone. So today I bet it will be a really big tactical session day to get ready for ourselves on Saturday.
Yeah, weather should be super fun on Saturday with the rain and potential snow and a little bit chillier temperatures for Saturday. Speaking of Saturday, we are joined by voice of MLS Season Pass, Lloyd Sam, former 19-year career playing professional soccer across England, the U.S., pretty much everywhere. He joins us today. Lloyd, how are we doing? Thank you for joining us on the Matchday Preview podcast.
I'm doing very well, man. You know, you guys are talking about weather, and I was just saying beforehand, I'm in Miami, so the weather's very nice here. Sorry to say, but, you know, looking forward to the game Saturday.
It certainly feels like it's a chillier Miami day here, but this is great for us up here where we're at right now.
It's really exciting to have Lloyd. We sometimes have local guys. I love having, you know, somebody who's really played both internationally, but also kind of in key years in MLS and has a really good knowledge of MLS, along with watching players, their post-career and transition. And it's been fun, Lloyd, watching you kind of not only kind of move into this department, but excel as an announcer now, calling games, analyzing games. Very enjoy watching.
I appreciate that. It's been a quick turnaround, man. As soon as I retired, straight in. And it's like, this is all I know now, to be fair. I was starting to forget about the playing days a little bit. I'm getting a little concerned, but, you know, it's been fun. I love it.
Are you still getting out there and playing a little bit? Or are you, is that still getting tougher on your body like me, where it's kind of now hurting a lot?
I'm looking for a league. You know, I've just moved to a new city, so I've got to find, you know, there's a soccer rooftop not too far away. Now I need to find some friends that want to play, you know, so that's the next challenge for me.
You don't have the itch to go pull a Sasha Kljestan or a Bradley Wright Phillips and play for the Des Moines Menace in the U.S. Open Cup for a game?
They asked me. I don't think I'm into that kind of physical strain anymore, you know?
Like that hits here. Des Moines is obviously 4 hours from here. We've had many over the decades battles in Open Cups against the Des Moines Menace. So it's a big story here because, again, you know, those guys are all flying in for this game. They obviously beat Kansas City, and Benny Philhaber coached this. He doesn't coach Kansas City now, but he coached them last.
He used to coach them, yeah.
So, and we might end up, they might end up being one of the teams that we
Not only might you end up, but, you know, I'm talking to Brad a lot. We have a little podcast as well, me and Brad at the moment. And, like, I'm asking him how the Open Cup game went. He says he wants the MLS team, so it could be you guys. Be you guys down the line. They got to beat Union Omaha first, though.
Good team. You know, Omaha's a good team.
I think they lost to them last year, from what I hear.
Yeah, they're tough. We sometimes come up here for preseason games or with our second team. They'll make their bodies hurt by the end of the game. They're physical.
But Sasha took me to play Saturday morning in New York City when we had a studio 360 one time. And that was when the physical strain let me know that this is getting a little bit dangerous now. Like, we need to prep our bodies before we go do that. Like, it's no joke right now. So keep me in the booth.
I like it. Hope you're still banging them in. So,
Yeah.
We've got plenty to discuss on the show. We've got some international soccer recaps. We'll recap the weekend that was across MLS, look back at the LA Galaxy 2-2 draw last weekend, and look ahead to the Real Salt game coming up on Saturday evening. Looking forward to all of this. Let's jump in. Let's look back at the weekend that was in MLS, and I think the most notable game was Chicago Fire getting a 3-1 victory over Vancouver Whitecaps. Vancouver's first loss of the season. Greg Berhalter getting one over on his son, who plays for the Vancouver Whitecaps. Lloyd, from your perspective, Vancouver have had an impressive season, but Greg Berhalter seems to be turning Chicago around.
He does seem to be doing that. That's 3 away wins in a row, which is ridiculously difficult.
Yeah.
I actually did Chicago's game when it was 2 away wins, and I was saying that's one of the best feelings, to go on the road twice. And then they've gone to Vancouver. A little disclaimer for Vancouver. They were missing a lot of guys that were really important. And, you know, Minnesota know about that as well. Probably have to look at actually giving an international break again for these teams. But Chicago, you see the clear difference of what a head coach that, knows what he's doing. No disrespect, to others, but he's come in, he's hit the ground running.
Manny?
Yeah. I mean, a great win. Lloyd, did you do the Dallas game then?
I did Toronto. That was
Toronto
right.
game. That's
Yeah,
right.
Chicago,
Yeah,
Toronto, right after Dallas.
Yeah, was it 3-1? They scored late away in Toronto. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I listen, I think it was probably a not only a Vancouver team that probably was missing players, they also have been doing, midweek games in the CONCACAF Champions for the last couple of weeks. So
That's true.
it built up. I think Vancouver still looked pretty good. And
They've been overachieving considering Champions Cup, right?
massively, massively. But listen, I want to get excited for Chicago. I'm going to be cautiously excited though, because and I say this nicely, Chicago's pulled me in before, and I've become a believer too soon. What a great start for them. I mean, what a great start.
I'm not thinking they're a candidate to win the whole thing, but if they wouldn't have got 3 away wins in a row last year, like impossible.
Yeah, I do think more teams or more people than ever before are rooting for Chicago. I think everybody loves the city. I think if they become kind of a winning franchise, it'll explode. That town is a sports town. So
I love that town. I do love that town. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. That would be great for them.
Yeah, it would be a fun one. So, and they do have a brand new training facility.
I've heard so many good things about that training facility.
Yeah, so they're great start for them. And by the way, for us in the West, we kind of liked all the results, and I like that Vancouver, dropped, and we're only 4 points out of first place. So there's some positives for us with that result as well.
Yeah, speaking of other Western Conference results that will certainly impact the Loons, St. Louis getting their first loss of the season, losing 1-0, giving up their first goal of the season to Philadelphia. This has been an impressive St. Louis team, despite the loss, despite giving up their first goal, Manny. St. Louis continue to still impress with what they're doing early on.
Yeah, I mean, if I recall that game, controversial red, I think it turns the game around in its head. And obviously Philly's outstanding at home, except for that one kind of game against Nashville this year. But Philly looks like the Philly of old so quickly after Jim Curtin. I'm really surprised. So it'll be really interesting to see how this next month, if they continue to have that kind of Jim Curtin era kind of toughness and winning at home and, kind of taking care of teams. This one I'm just going to say it was a little bit hard to say just because that weird red card. It was Lowen, right? Did he kick the ball away? So it might have been, delay of
Leuven, yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to St. Louis, I need to see more attacking threat from them. You can't sustain a whole season of just like bunkering down and, winning 1-0 and Roman Burke's done great, and defensively they've done great, but that's the one that I feel probably better about Chicago than I do St. Louis. Wait, St. Louis? Go on.
Oh no, I'm going to get nervous when we go to Minnesota here. I'm a little.
Which is the one that you guys call the most friendly rivalry? What's that?
That's
what
Kansas
team?
City.
That's Kansas City. Okay. But St. Louis is close to you guys as well, right?
What game did you do this weekend?
I did 2. I did Minnesota game.
Yep.
And all the games are muddled in my head right now. I'm like, wait, I did Seattle and Houston.
Oh, Seattle-Houston, the 0-0, right?
Yes. I did that one as well. That was an interesting one.
Was that at Houston or at Seattle?
It was at Seattle.
At Seattle. Okay, so they're dealing with injuries as well, right?
Seattle are dealing with some big injuries, but their squad is so good that they're still able to put like Jesus Ferreira, Christian Roldan, Albert Rusnak, Rothrock. It doesn't feel like they've done a great job with the roster because they're missing Areola, they're missing Jordan Morris, and they're missing De La Vega. It's like, wow, like how have they? I need to see the cap numbers there. I'm like, how have they fit everybody in? Like, it's crazy with that.
It's a difficult problem to have for Brian Schmetzer, I'm sure, to have all that talent. And they've started off the season struggling, but as you said, the injuries have hit them. Back to St. Louis, just 4 goals in 5 games. So yeah, they certainly need to improve their attacking front going forward. The other team that I want to talk about, Orlando City 4, DC United 1. Orlando City have scored the most goals in MLS, 13, conceded the second most in MLS, 11. This is a very wild team. This feels, I don't want to say last year's Galaxy because we know what the Galaxy ended up doing, but I remember us talking at the beginning of the season about the Galaxy last year and how many goals they were scoring, but also how many goals they were conceding. Lloyd, when you look at Orlando, do you think they're a contender this year? I mean, they're sitting ninth place in the Eastern Conference, 7 points out of 5 games. But with the amount of goals they can score, they certainly can hang tough with anyone.
Yeah, they can score. It kind of applies what I was just saying about the Seattle squad, where
Yeah.
how have they got like Luis Muriel starting and Duncan Maguire's coming on? They've got Ramiro Enrique, who's also doing well. Pasalic is there. It's just a lot of firepower, like everywhere you look with them. And like you wonder, like that's a really good squad. I think that they can, well, they'll make playoffs. You know, you said contender. It depends that they're good enough to make playoffs. They're scoring, as you said, it's still like threes, fours, or at least two every week. They do concede some goals as well, but I like what they're doing. And Oscar Pereira always finishes well as well. So, he started pretty decent with the goals. And, he always figures things out about his players as the season goes on. So they'll get better with time.
Manny, are they a contender or just a fun team to watch at this point in the season?
I think they have a potential to explode and be a contender. I think Pereira is going to have to do an amazing job to ask questions about their defensive discipline. So for me, the first one, because I love to watch him, I love the drama of Galese, but is he the right leader and is he the consistent goalie that actually allows you to have a consistent defensive performance week in and week out? I got to tell you, the backup was in this weekend, and I kind of liked looking at them from a structure, organized standpoint better. So to me, it really, to me, isn't going to be about they'll flow their attack. And I think Muriel looks way better this year than in last year, more comfortable.
Does. He's lost some weight as well.
Yes, he's lost weight. He looks like he really is up for it. And again, McGuire is going to give you everything. So I think for me, it's going to be about, can he get that group to believe that they can play a balanced soccer game for 34 games or now 30-ish or 29 games. So it's a great challenge for Pereira, because I think it's an honest one, though, because that is coaching at the end of the day, whether it's making a decision about who you're going to put on the field or whether how you're building a group that understands, both sides of this game have to be done well to win.
Jonathan, I think there needs to be another category in between contender or fun team to watch. I think there should be two categories in there.
Like it. Yeah.
We need some nuance in there, Jonathan, to
There's no space for nuance in the media today. We got to go one or the other. You're either all on board or all off board with.
Oh wow, you're just throwing it out. I mean, I will ask.
I've been trying to get Manny to do this for a while since we started doing the podcast.
And my brain goes to the Western Conference team, so I want to stick with the East. Like, who do you think are? I mean, obviously you're going to say Miami, but who do you think are like going to be the sneakily teams up there in the top four in the East? Because I do think it's a really interesting conference, and probably at the top end a little deeper than the West right now. So I'm curious.
It's a tough conference. Even some of the teams at the bottom, when you look at them, you're like, oh, they're going to improve as time goes on. Yeah. But Charlotte FC.
Yeah.
Charlotte FC, I'm glad you said sneakily. Like, they're one of those teams that they were already good defensively. They've got Pep Biel, the number 10. He had 2 assists and a goal on the weekend. He's really looking like the number 10 they've always needed. Zaha's there, and he hasn't really exploded yet. Other guys are doing stuff. Yeah. And their depth is not bad as well, because Ajiman was away with US. They brought in another guy, Idan Toklomati, who's like a young Israeli international, and he really impressed in that game actually as well. So they're doing something good. The coaching staff is getting, really good return out of the players. A 4-1 win at home. They just had, was it 4-1?
Yeah, it was 4-0 at halftime, I think. So it was a blowout.
Yeah, it was 4-1.
Yeah. Against San Jose. Yes. Okay. So, I mean, you have to take notice when the team is winning 4-1 like that. And, they're in good form right now. I'm excited to see where, Charlotte land at the end of the season. But there's too many good teams, I feel like, in the East at the moment. I kind of probably need to pull up the league table, and I'll come back to you with some more names, because there's so many.
No, I like that answer. I think Charlotte right now, it seems like at home, people are not excited to go play there. Opposing teams are probably feel like they feel a little bit. Yeah, they just don't look like they have the energy to take them on right now at home. So.
Oh yeah, that and I don't know if you know of my background. I was the Charlotte FC commentator 2022, so I know all about the atmosphere and all about what they've been good at and what they've not been good at. and
Right.
they've needed a 10. They've definitely needed a 10, and they've got Pep Biel, and he's really playing well. And they've got him on a TAM contract. He was meant to be a DP guy, and they got him on a TAM contract. But he's playing like a DP at this point in the season.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and you like you said, Saha will only get fitter, get more comfortable. Like he'll be a danger for sure.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, Charlotte have been impressive. Where does Columbus fit into this conversation? Because they're on 9 points through 5 games, sitting down in sixth. 6 goals scored, 3 goals allowed this season. But it feels like, I mean, you look at their game this last weekend against New York City FC, it was a 0-0 draw. Columbus had 24 shots, but couldn't find a way to the back of the net. I know they've struggled without Cucho Hernandez there. Where do you see them fitting into that conversation, Lloyd?
Oh man, it's just a tough one. They had a lot of shots, but it's another 0-0. You're just not used to 0-0s with Columbus, are you? And Wilfred Nancy is always talking about the team and this and that, but there's another aspect of difference makers. Yeah, you're losing your difference makers that put the ball in the back of the net, and it's a little bit more difficult now. You haven't. They still got some good players. Jason Russell-Rowe, Diego Rossi can do it. But you've got to imagine Cucho's on the field in those games. He could be the difference, So, man, difference makers, you need a couple of those guys that can just turn the game with a moment. And, they've got one less in Cucho. And they're probably figuring out who's going to pick up that slack a little bit. He wants to be defensively better, and they do look like that. He wants to be scrappier and uglier. He's a guy that constantly tinkers with his team. Sometimes I'm thinking, Wilfred, just stop now. Like you're as good as. But then he's, fair play to him. He's a guy that's in his office. He's talked to us about this before. Always trying to make the team better. Oh, how can I change this? And and I feel like they're missing Cucho. As simple as that. Guys have to step up in other areas like Russell-Rowe. Maybe a couple more goals from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just gonna agree with Lloyd in that. Like, if I was Columbus, I would try to be pretty honest about how amazing of a coach Wilfred Nancy is. Like I would start with like he is unbelievable, and he can get out the best of a player, the best version of a player, personality. But at some point, the club has to look at the quality of the roster, of what they've lost. And when you look at Cucho, when you look at Morris, when you look at now even our Minnesotan fellow, Chris Ramirez. That team does not feel dangerous to me. That team feels me like it's going to have a lot of draws because it's solid, because Wilfred's a good tactician. He's also a good in-game management coach, and they'll be competitive. But do I think that's a team at the top of the West of that roster? No. That is not like the Columbus of the last 3 or 4 years. They don't strike fear, and that does have to come down to Cucho.
Add in Champions Cup as well, Manny.
Yes.
Once that comes back, how difficult that is to and their squad is tiny.
Yes.
Like when we're doing our commentary notes, we're doing notes on each player. I like it when it's Columbus. There's not that many like this year. Like I had Columbus, and there was significantly less.
Yeah.
I was actually like taken aback with how quick I got through it. And Wilfred Nancy says he wants a small squad. But with Champions Cup and the demands and no Cucho, it's going to be a little different for them. And the fans are not giving them much slack. Like they were booed at the end of the game.
Yeah. And I really like Rossi. I think he's got qualities. He's just not physically dominating. The league and the game has become more physical. He's going to need somebody else to help carry that offensive load. I just think I think Russell-Rowe's of good potential. I don't think he's ready to take over the league. I would love for him to surprise me. By the way, just so you know, Lloyd, I throw stuff at the wall. Some sticks, some doesn't. I think he's still in kind of his transition to like what type of player is going to be in the league. I don't think he's ready to take over the league.
Yeah.
Quite yet. So I don't think they're going to strike a lot of fear in a lot of teams, and I think teams are going to go get points at Columbus.
They are looking to sign someone though.
Yeah,
from what I've heard.
For sure.
They just need to get a move on with it.
As we transition to this conversation into the international recap, before we get into the U.S. men's national team discussion, which I know will take up some time, looking at some of the Loons in international action, Michael Boxall scoring his first international goal, and it's the goal that sends New Zealand to the World Cup for the first time in, 15 years? Great moment for Michael Boxall, Manny.
Yeah. Listen, this is fun now. Let's talk about the international break and not talk about the U.S. to start.
Amen.
That might be a longer discussion and really let's block that out. Yeah, it was for Minnesota United, and I don't even know if Lloyd knows this, it was a great break. I mean, Boxall,
Yeah.
game-winning goal to send his
This
country.
is why I love coming on the local ones and hearing
Yeah.
what's going on, because I didn't know
Oh,
about that Vauxhall. So give
yes.
me all the info. Give me all the info.
And then our Harvey was the highest rated player in 2 games, both against the U.S. and Mexico. Great, he's at this.
He was
this
so
I like,
impressive for
I
Canada.
like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah. They put him at we put him at center back, and he's excelled there. He's a center midfielder. Tani scoring against the U.S., playing great. Dane winning against the U.S. And I think Lloyd even had a solid 2 games. He subbed in the first game, and then he started to play 65 the second. So it was just, before we go to the Team USA, where my heart is.
I'm writing some notes down right now.
What a fun, great international break for our individuals, and we had a lot of them. And I know that affected our Galaxy game, and it makes me kind of put a little bit of an excuse for not getting the full 3 points on Saturday.
Yeah.
For the international break, it was a great one. Our players represented Minnesota United outstandingly.
So wait, that was Boxall's first goal, did you say? For international?
First international goal. He scored for us, but his first ever international.
First international goal. And what is he, 36 now?
Yeah, and he's played probably a good 15 years. Yeah.
Man,
I think that was his 56th
He looks even better this year.
teams.
He looks better this year. He looks like he's getting better. He's not slowing down, is he?
No, he's a big boy. He's tough. Yeah,
he can move. He can move. He's still fast as well.
Yeah, much faster than people realize. I think he actually is one of the fastest players on our team when he gets going. And
Harrison Heath told me that a few years back. He was telling me how quick Boxall was. I was like, really? And then now I see it more, now that I'm watching all the games. And no, that's great to hear, man. I mean, shame that you couldn't get the win against LA. But when you look at that, you're like, wow, they're out there spreading the Minnesota United gospel all around the world as well.
That was great. And I had some good banter with Tani. He came at me, rightfully so, in a good way about USA Canada. And it was great to see him score his first international goal. He had a couple great chances last year in the Copa America, and I think he was just really good, excited to get off the mark. And to be fair, they played better than us. And I think Dane had a really good bounce back game. I don't think he had to do much against Mexico in terms of the goals. They scored them, and then the rest of the game, I felt like, the Canada had most of the possession. So it was a good outing for our individuals. But I know where you're going, Jonathan, after this, and yeah, we can chat. I have no problem.
It's not like I want to go there because of how disappointing and rough it was. But I mean, we have to talk about it. U.S. men's national team, 2 losses in CONCACAF Nations League to Panama and Canada, as he said. So finishing 4th in Nations League. Lloyd, from your perspective, what did you take away from these games for the U.S.? Is it time to panic for the U.S. at this point?
I know American fans are panicking, so is it time to panic? I don't think panic will really help anyone, but I feel like Pochettino is still experimenting things and still figuring out stuff in like big games that you need to win to get to the next round and stuff. Not making like too much of an excuse for him, but it does feel like it could do with a couple more friendlies just to tinker around without too much pressure. I know that there has been a big knee jerk after that. And this puts tremendous pressure on the team right now because of those results. It's a bit of an ugly situation. World Cup is not that far away. You're losing to Panama and Canada. It's like you would forgive losing to Canada maybe, but the two losses feels like you got to get something from one of those. In fact, I did an interview before the game. And someone had asked me about that, and I said, probably need to win Nations League to keep people happy. I said, at least get to the final. But to lose to you can't lose to Panama right now. I know it's never an easy game, but I feel like the fans, the way the American U.S. men's national team fans are, and not you guys necessarily, but I'm surprised how toxic it can be sometimes when things aren't going right. I did some World Cup stuff 2022, and it was stuff with US, and I was like, damn, these fans, there's not a lot of patience when it comes to their national team, but it's a disaster. You can't lose those 2 games right now when there's so much riding on it and the World Cup is coming. It's like, there's just so much pressure now on the next stuff coming up.
Yeah, it feels like the talk about this team kind of flipped on a switch with the Nations League, as you were saying, Lloyd Sam. it seemed like there was some positivity with what we've seen under Mauricio Pochettino, Manny. But then after those two games, all of a sudden it feels like the knives are out for Poch already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go positive start and then I'll go negative. But my positive is that I do believe we have two world-class outside backs in Dest and Robbins that weren't playing. So my brain is already like, okay, that'll make a huge difference just from the back four. Because I thought the back four was horrible the whole time. Passing, whether it was older guys who just weren't sharp or whether it was younger guys that are up and coming in Europe but haven't become world-class yet. So that back four positioning for me, I'm hoping Pochettino learned a lot. We're going to need Dest and Robinson to be healthy and ready to go, and we are a totally different team. And then it really goes into the two center backs and our goalkeeping. I think hopefully Pochettino learned we need a sharp goalie. I don't care if he's playing in MLS. I don't care if he's playing in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
We just can't afford, when it comes down to big games, not have somebody who's not ready to like positionally be in the right places to make the big plays. So we take that game to overtime against Panama or even against Canada, maybe just one or two more sharp saves and we can hang in there, even though I think we got massively outplayed against Canada. After that, I really do turn it to Pochettino. And I get a little bit nervous because it's only 12 months out. And I'm a fan now. I'm talking about as a U.S. soccer fan. I have seen the rodeo of thinking Christian Pulisic is a 10. And I don't care whether it's national team or worldwide, put the players in the position that they're best at. He's a quick, explosive winger, and that's where he excels for whatever team he's played in Europe. And I really hope Pochettino kind of gets that balance of the tactics and of getting the most out of the players by the fact that we have really good players, but we're not going to be great if they don't play in the positions that I think they excel, and then that they're going to become that group over the next 12 months. And Lloyd just said it. We only have like 3 or 4 windows, so now your brain is like, holy shit, do we have the right coach? And I really do think we do, because I think he's going to deal with adversity. He's done it his whole career. He'll figure it out. But I'm going to panic a little bit because there's a lot of work to be done now. We have a lot of warts. We have a lot of holes. If we're talking about making a run against some of the best teams in the world, you should be scared. Like, because you don't want it to be the stress to be just to be getting out of your group, or like you want the stress to be like, how far can we go and how well can we navigate winning games in different ways? So
can I ask you guys a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has the team gone backwards from Berhalter?
I think the team has gone backwards, but it's okay. We can go much more forwards because we learn a lot now and we can learn way more in 12 months. So, yes, I don't think what I
Positive spin on it. I like it.
Yeah, when I saw these two games, I think you said it best. Pochettino's getting to learn the guys, and he might have to go through this. Like, he might have to go through really getting to know, can I put the guys where I want them to be, or do I need to put the guys where I think they're going to be most effective? Again, he's our guy in 12 months. So I'm going to support him. We're going to need him.
Support him. That's the attitude. I hope a lot of people hear this. He's going to be the guy. Support the team. He needs a bit of time. It's not ideal, but the alternative of like trashing everything that they're doing, there was some good stuff in there as well, so it's like, support him. He's going to be the guy.
And I still I think we've got deep forward lines. Again, I don't think people realize there are not that many world-class number 9s that start and are like on the team sheet. And that includes Spain and France. So I think we've got a deep list of 9s. I think we've got a deep list of center midfielders. I think we've got some outstanding, I would say, I'm not going to say world superstars, but they're world-class in their positions and they're being effective for high-level teams throughout the world. So again, for me, I'm a little bit nervous about the not back four, the center backs and the goalkeeping position. But I just hope Pochettino will learn from it. And again, as a fan, I get to say, hey, I think Christian Pulisic is much better wide. And I think he's one of our key players. And I think Pochettino should put him in the position that he can excel. I would love to be wrong. And he says he's a 10. And by the way, he said that publicly now. So I feel like even talking about it more to somebody like Lloyd, who's a pundit, he told the media that he sees him like Christian Eriksen. My brain can't combine that.
That's a complete different profile.
I think of Christian Pulisic.
Complete different profile of player.
Totally different. His touches and.
All right, it's time to panic, guys. It's time to panic.
Well, I just hope he learns. Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he's right. Maybe he sees something I don't. But
no, it's a different profile. You can't even compare those two.
Right, and he did. He did publicly. So now I talk about it, and I hope we get to a place where he kind of absorbs all of that. I do think he'll recalibrate our guys. I think we will get our fight and our spirit back by the World Cup. I do, which to me will be the most important. I actually will even accept, not winning the World Cup or making a huge run. If the guys show a fighting spirit, that gets me excited about the future of U.S. soccer.
Okay.
It only took 40 minutes, but I got you, Lloyd, to get rid of the nuance and go one or the other, one end or the other. It's been a year and a half, and I still haven't broken Manny of that. So,
and last but not least, I mean, it wasn't the U.S. Federation's fault. It wasn't the players' fault. There is a side of this where CONCACAF, wants to make money. They make these double headers where the Mexican fans buy all the tickets. Our team has to play before those games. Well,
why is that? Wait, why is it because the Mexican team sells more tickets in the US?
It's whoever buys them first. So you could blame our US fans, or you could say CONCACAF is running this event. They're putting the doubleheader at SoFi Stadium. The tickets go on sale. Maybe the Mexican fans they do get them faster than our
Who decides which game is earlier and later? That's CONCACAF.
That's CONCACAF. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I heard one of the games was West Coast and it was like 4 o'clock or something. Or something like that.
Yeah. And so, and again, by the way, you could push back and say, well, just beat Panama and you're playing Mexico in front of 80,000, which is a good environment, but it'll be all mostly kind of Mexican American fans. But long story short, it's got to be hard on the players. Lloyd, you're a former player. You want to play for your crest. You're at this doubleheader. It's like half empty or quarter full.
It's not inspiring. I was seeing too many empty seats in one of them. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah, that's that. I mean, again, I don't want to make too much of an excuse. Our guys have to, if you go back to my generation stuff, I think the pioneers would say deal with it. Deal with it. Tweets about finding a way, but there is a reality that this generation, I think, is going to need our support. Tough love maybe for these next couple months to say you better show up and give the energy and effort. But I do think we do as a country need to support them too, because it's not easy to come and play and be expected to dominate. And I do always say to our American audience, the global game at the top level is unbelievable. I mean, there are some countries, and we are hitting Canada's best ever national team ever, and they look like it. They were better than us.
And Davies was, went down as well. They look, Jonathan David, man. I'm excited for his next move. Like, he's at a Champions League club, setting it alight, and he scored everywhere he's gone. Scored international. Like, where is he going next? I can only imagine. It's going to be one of the top teams.
Yeah, and I'll leave it because I'm pontificating way too much because I'm giving our audience that I am pissed about the games. I hope Pochettino not only thinks about the players, but tactically against Canada, Jesse Marsch had them pressing and closing in a way that we had no idea how to pass out of the back. And I want Pochettino's ego to say, fine for one game, but I will figure this out now. And I don't know if that's because Christian's in the middle. I don't know if that's because our two midfielders weren't moving wherever. But at the end of the day, Jesse Marsch's tactics were very good in that game. They pressed and closed in the way that
that meant the world to Jesse, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
That meant the world to him. He's been very vocal about
Kid from Racine, Wisconsin. That's right by you, Lloyd. That's about 6 hours from Twin Cities. Racine, Wisconsin.
Yes.
Doing that to our country.
Man, I can only imagine, what Jesse was like after that. I mean, he got sent off in the game. He's so fired up.
Sweepstakes alert. Do you want to see MNUFC go up against Inter Miami on May 10th? Enter through the MNUFC mobile app to win 2 free tickets to this high-stakes spring game. This exclusive giveaway runs March 18th to April 3rd. Download the MNUFC app or visit MNUFC.com to learn more. All right, this is the match day preview, so we probably should talk about Minnesota United and their game at the weekend and the game coming up. So we've spent enough time. I mean, there was plenty to talk about internationally and in MLS, but let's jump right into Minnesota United, LA Galaxy 2-2 draw here. Plenty to discuss here as well. This was a really fun game for the viewers, Manny. I mean, back and forth. Loons playing some of their better attacking soccer that I've seen, especially in that second half when they came out immediately pressing LA Galaxy and putting them under pressure. Your general thoughts on this match before we dive into the big moments of this match?
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote a couple things down, and the first thing was with our guest here, and I wanted to get his perspective because it's so personal to me, Lloyd. I grew up a mile from that stadium. I could never imagine having such a beautiful stadium, and maybe arguably one of the best, if not the best, environments. And then I want to give a shout out and ask Lloyd's perspective. How amazing our fans were. I don't know if you guys remember, but like we have 5 starters out. We're not sure how we're going to play.
Yeah.
And the game ends up having LA, who's also desperate in their own way, having a couple players maybe get injured or fake injuries. And the next thing you know, our fans are booing relentlessly at the players that kind of faked injuries. And like, it was a moment where I think we're flyover country sometimes, Lloyd, in the Midwest.
Okay.
And we don't respect that our fans love the game. They watch.
What's that mean when you say flyover country?
So it means that you've got the East Coast and West Coast. You've got the LAs and the New Yorks, and they don't really look at the center.
I thought that's what you meant. I just wanted to get...
So and even whether that's like culturally or whether that's even the soccer IQ, they think everything happens on the coast. So
yes, true.
And you called the game, and you saw the perspective. You saw our fans, our atmosphere. You saw that like 10 minutes into the game, our fans relentlessly booed a couple guys who touched the ball for 90 minutes. And I just think some people, I want to give a shout out to our fans, that some people overlook that our fans really love this game. They love the club and they care about the winning. And again, my first comments to you there, Jonathan, are 10 minutes in, our fans are in the game. They're letting our kind of mishmash lineup guys know we will be with you for 90 minutes. I just thought it was a cool moment. And I just want to get Lloyd's perspective on our stadium, on the clubs, and the fan experience a little bit.
Well, I mean, I have to start on a sad note, right? The sad note is I'm doing games remote at the moment, so I can't
I didn't
even
know that. Sorry.
So it's so sad that I can't. I mean, I've done a few games there, and I love coming to Minnesota, but now I'm doing the games remote. You're making me sad, Manny, by bringing that up because I'm gonna miss the whole the singing and the scarves and all. I love that tradition when corners are coming in, and I like that.
Is this like an Apple thing now? Some games are remote, some are live, or I didn't know that.
Okay, so that's why I've moved to Miami this week. It's some are remote, not all of them.
Okay.
And so that last game I just did was a remote one, so I wasn't. And
it was a cold day, by the way. It was a cold day, so you might have.
No, I'll be in the stadium. I would want to be in the stadium every time. However cold it is. I love coming up there, and I love the vibes of the different cities. You go there, you go to Seattle, I'm eating salmon on the water, and you go somewhere else, you get in the humidity. It's just very cool to, every week. But I'm glad you gave a shout out to the fans, man. It's part of it. And the way Minnesota are playing right now, which is like a very like rugged, like intense, it's kind of very disciplined and organized, and getting the fans involved, they can really get involved in that and be like a really horrible team to play against. And if the fans get involved, I think that's kind of where you're going with it. I love the way like the players, and this is going away from the fans, but I love the way the players are kind of all in on Eric Ramsey's tactics. It's rare where you see like they're so engaged and into the tactics, and the tactics aren't necessarily glamorous tactics.
No, they're not.
But it's been really taken on board by the players. And when you get a few results and you're like, yeah, let's keep going with this. And Yeboah's got some of the most shots in the league, and you're like, wait a minute, seems very defensive, but we're generating chances. It's great to see that it's like you're still getting some good attacking play. And Jonathan talked about the second half. Man, do you know who I was really happy about in the second half? Jefferson Diaz.
Yeah.
Because the week before, maybe had a hard time. I don't know, what the talk in Minnesota is, but, he came on right when it kind of went wrong and maybe was at fault somewhat for the first goal. How good was he on the ball, by the way? Oh, my gosh. Like, he played a few through balls in. The Kelvin Yeboah flick that got cleared off the line?
Yep.
There was like a 60-second sequence of Jefferson Diaz, like, playing some great weighted balls from the back. Like, he's got an eye for a pass from the back. I was happy with his performance as a bounce back, maybe from the week before. But yeah, second half, there was some, it was different. It wasn't sit back and like, we're going to
No,
wait for you to come. We're setting the tone, which was quite exciting to see.
we got our possession probably above 40% for the first time this year. But yeah,
What does possession do? What does possession do at the end of the day? Doesn't win you games necessarily.
I love that you observed Diaz because he did have probably arguably the first and third goal against Kansas City he would really want back. And I think, combination of the international break, he wasn't game sharp, and now Eric had to put him in and just really had to say, go do it with a really young back line. I mean, we had Diaz was Morgan, Dugan is probably his sixth pro game.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got Romero. I mean, sixth with MLS. He played a little bit in USL last year.
Yeah.
And then Nicholas Romero had his starting debut, and he's only 21. He has a lot of pro games in Argentina, but he's like a veteran.
He held his own. He held his own back there. They all kind of. I mean, Morris in the middle. That was the interesting one for me. Like without Boxall, can you hold your own? I think he did pretty well. There is a concern that you guys have conceded 5 goals in 2 games. Where
I know it's changed.
I never would have expected that, but maybe it's a bit of the time. It's the second goal for LA. It was a very Minnesota United goal. Second phase of a set piece. Yeah, so I don't know what taste it left in you guys' mouth like after that. Like
I mean, like we're very local here. So my dad, who's a very popular former coach and locally here.
Okay.
He goes back to probably more about Bongi's decision to not just stay on his feet and dive in to create the free kick is probably the area that he would like to see a little bit more like closing out games. Just in that situation, I think you don't want to foul to allow because it didn't look like LA was going to score. We were having a great second half. They kind of ran out of ideas. I don't think Greg's subs were improving them. In fact, I think we were building momentum every time he made a sub, which is a good sign that you think you're going to close the game out. And I think that just allowing that scenario to happen, I don't think there was as much blame on the set piece itself, but it did create the chaos. So I think we want that one back. So I've got one other in my notes here because it's funny. He's been so good, and we don't actually talk about him enough. How good Yeboah has been for this club since he signed, and the kind of moxie and just what he has. And I'm
glad you said moxie. There's a little something there that he wants to be that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's fun because now I get to make you smile a little bit more because there's some similarities that you're this Ghanaian English guy. He's this Ghanaian Italian guy, both forwards, both banging goals.
Yeah. No, I love it. I like, what can he not do as a striker? That's now my question. Instead of listing what he can do, it's like, what can he not do? He holds it up. He beats guys on the dribble. He creates his own chance. He puts it in the back of the net. He presses well. I think that's from Eric Ramsey. He said he's been on at him for the defensive side. But, if you think back to a couple games back, do you remember when he took the ball off someone in the box and he took a dive? Do you remember that game?
Yes. Yeah.
What I'm focusing on is how well he took the ball off of someone. He gets his body in, and he's really good on the defensive side as well. So it's like the sky is really the limit for him like this season. It's got to be 15 to 20 goals in my mind for him this season.
Jonathan, what's he at right now?
He's at 4 so far this season.
That's it? Jeez.
Yeah.
I thought it was more. He's created some goals too. His goal, he's definitely created some too. So for sure.
Yeah. Who would want to defend him? Like, I would hate defending him. It's one of them ones where it's like, this is going to be a tough day. A big body with soft feet and skills and step overs and that. Like, that is not what you want to face. I love his profile, and I feel like, fair play scouting department. That's a great signing. There is another guy I really like how he started the season, but he got injured. Hassani Dotson. Oh my goodness, man.
Oh my God.
He's playing some of the best football right now. And, I'm not even just talking about his screamer of a goal. It's just how engaged he is in the game, getting around the pitch. It looks like it means a lot to him. I've really enjoyed watching him, and I was really upset. Like, there was an innocuous injury, no one around him. I was like, oh man, like he's playing so well. Those are the ones that hurt you the most when someone's form is so good. And they go down.
Logan, I'm gonna politely disagree about innocuous. The injury actually occurred. I don't know if you remember calling the game.
Okay.
On a counterattack.
It was on the tackle from Peck, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sani decided not to go forward, and I thought it was just Peck. He turned backwards. Peck actually recovered, so Peck's running back on defense
Yeah.
the ball, and he just kind of decides to leave his leg in a way
Oh, really? Okay, so it had happened before that moment.
yes, he
Okay.
Yeah.
tried to
What is
play
the
through it.
injury?
It's meniscus. I mean, I'll give a quick update. Hassani had surgery yesterday.
No, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he'll be out. I mean, we're anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and it's a long timeline because they did have to do some work on the meniscus. I don't know. I mean, I'm gutted like you though because he is like Michael Boxall in terms of being in this club and growing into what he is, and he got that physical presence. He gets around the field. I always feel like he's kind of like just in the style. I'm not going to say the levels, but he reminds me of Jude Bellingham. He'll try to go do everything and get around and be that physical guy. And
A guy you want to line up with, like you want a
yes,
guy like that in the middle. You know what
yeah,
he's going to give you. He's going to give it to the flair players and all that. And if he has to pull out a little something, he will do that every.
yeah,
But I'm really
yeah.
upset about the 3 to 6 month thing, man. But that's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah. That's one of the things I hate about this sports is
I'm
like,
gonna go back and look back where that injury was. Now that you
yeah,
told me that.
yeah, it's
It was like, I think it was a couple minutes before he actually went down. There was a little bit of a break because he had sat on the turf and was kind of holding his knee. The trainers came out, tried to play it off, and then a couple minutes later is when he made the jump and then came down. You could tell as soon as he landed that he knew something was wrong.
and now I'm going to be a little emotional because I this is how much I love and what Asani has meant to the club. Like I hated the refereeing that day. I just thought he was a little bit off from the get-go.
Yeah.
And like again, I think he just threw out a yellow card too early for us, and then that was probably a yellow card. It bugs me that it happened on that day. Again, like I said, I don't think people realize how much important referees are to get things right, so the game doesn't get to these kind of little fouls. And I think this was worse than a little foul. But anyway, long story short, we'll move on. It was a tough week for the club with Hassani, but he's knowing his personality, he's back at it, already doing rehab today and getting ready to go when he can again. So yeah,
got a couple questions.
Back to some positive, Jonathan.
Positive. Let's get back
You
to
mentioned
positive.
subs. I loved also, this is for our Minnesota fans, Owen, our young kid, came in the middle for Asani. I thought did really well. That's his more regular position. I don't know if he called the Kansas City game, Lloyd, but he kind of went out wide in a 5-4-1. Here he's in the middle.
Yeah.
He played at Amiens. He's only 21, so I thought he got around the field pretty well. Sammy Shishoa went up top for St. Ben. I thought Sammy looked really lively, really dangerous.
That was his best performance in a Loons kit.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And he really, I thought, combined pretty well with Calvin Yaboa. And then Joseph Rosales getting back on the field. He obviously created the PK, but just his
That's
he's
good to
got
see him
something.
back. Mark Cannick's done well as well.
Yeah, he has. Yeah,
The squad is in a great place. The Hassani thing is not amazing, but there is some better cover this year. To fill in for him. So, and everyone should be back off of internationals, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. And I thought Bongi stepped up and had one of his best games. Man, he was so clever with some of his dribbling moves this weekend. I thought he was quick.
He's enjoying that right wing back role, it feels like.
Yeah. I mean, I think early on, he's still, even this year, is like, I always tries a little bit higher up the field. What I would say is it provides a great opportunity to him now be that dominant player. But now even Eric can be tactically flexible to when he goes to a back four, which I think eventually at some times we will. I don't think this is how we're going to play 33 games. I think you can put him up high. You can put him at right wing or back. I just think he's going to build into really being a very dangerous player because he's so versatile on that wing now, where he can play wing back or he can go up and play in a front three or whatever. So he's got something that I think allows him, because most right wingers will not embrace that defensive work rate, and he will. Just kind of nice,
he will. It suits him.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "Oh, okay, he's far from the goal," but his attributes just look like perfect for that position, getting up and down and being defensively sound, as you're talking about. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, he's more honest defensively than people realize. Actually, he really is. He's really, he's a player that came from South Africa, didn't play a lot of organized soccer to like 15 or 16. And for him to be so tactically astute defensively, not playing organized soccer, blows my mind. It really does.
Yeah, so. shout him out for that, man. Compliments to him. Great stuff he's doing.
Plenty to discuss here. I've got some questions off things you guys had talked about over the past couple minutes or so. Kelvin Yaboa, Tani Oluwaseyi over the past 2 weeks have both scored braces, but without each other without the other on the field. So now that Tanny's back from international duty, Manny, how do you get both of these guys to start clicking when they're both on the field at the same time? Because before the Kansas City game, we saw them both on the field at the same time, and it seemed like there was some growing pains in learning how to play with another striker up top. How do you get both of these guys to get going and keep the form that they've had over the past 2 weeks while they're both on the field at the same time?
I'll let Lloyd answer this one. I mean, he grew up in the era of 4-4-2s and two forwards, and Dwight
Two
York
forwards.
yeah. So
York and Cole.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just leave them. They've got braces without each other, but I wouldn't think that they can't score with each other on the field. I feel like they're both in good form. Tanny's just gone away. Yeboah has scored. You just keep playing them together. It's gonna work. And I wouldn't say it hasn't worked. They just haven't both scored at the same time, which, I mean, we're in the business of winning games. So I don't think it's a big concern. I think the defenders don't want to defend against two strikers like that. Defenders these days are used to defending against one striker. Then you see Tanny and Yeboah with all that they bring. It's a handful. And even if they're not scoring, they're influencing the game. The ball goes up the pitch. They're going to hold it up. They're going to battle. They're going to run. And Tanny, I talked about Kelvin Yeboah on the defensive end. Tanny does the same as well. Like, he defends well. He runs. Like, everybody is committed to defending in that team, So I think even if they're not scoring, they're influencing the game. But I see goals coming, for both of them at some point. It's a good problem to have. You leave them out there and you let them do their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back
By
to
the way, what Lloyd said, I can't. That's it. You could have ended the show right there, Lloyd. Spot on.
Appreciate that, Manny. I appreciate that, man. I'm excited about those two, man. I'm excited about them.
Yeah.
And that's how it's felt like Eric Ramsey's been treating this. He understood that. You've heard him in the post-game press conferences. He understood that there'd be some growing pains with getting these guys to learn how to play with another striker up top with them, where they can go when they need to make runs, when they need to make those passes, instead of just taking the shot and being focused on that. And it's always felt like he's understood that there's going to be a learning process for these two guys, and he's going to play through it and keep those guys on the field. Going back to the Sonny Dotson conversation, Manny, you saying he's going to be out for a couple months. How does that Loons midfield adjust? Because I agree with Lloyd. He's been playing some of his best soccer to start this season. That's a big loss for the Loons in the midfield. How does Eric Ramsey adjust that midfield with the players that he has at his disposal?
Well, I mean, I think you got to take a deep breath and really be honest about what you like and don't like about. We still have another Korean that we haven't played yet. Jean is still. I think he's going to get some minutes with the second team that we signed in the offseason. Owen looks sharp and good. Obviously, Will has been outstanding. Lloyd, Pereira. So we
I like Pereira as well. Just
he had a great game.
We've got some nice depth. Now we're missing something from a physical standpoint that I think is going to be big for the club. To be honest, do we have enough? Can we just go with what we have, or go with some of the guys, or do we have to? I mean, we do have roster flexibility. I mean, that's one of the.
Who is the most similar player, would we say, to Dotson then? Or is there anyone that does do that? I mean, Trapp can get around and hold that midfield pretty well, but is there anyone like Dotson?
I actually think Dotson's more unique. There's not a lot like him in the league, so
there's not a lot like him, is there?
So I think it's going to be, Jonathan, it's going to be a good, hard discussion now to see where we're going with it. And the good thing is we've got some time to see some of the younger players we signed and some of the new players, and we'll see where they fit into it. Ultimately, the one nice thing is when you have a player like Robin Lode, it can kind of play everywhere and has stepped up for a club every year to add something. And he's at an age where he still can get around the middle of the field. That might be your answer. We almost have Will Trapp in front of the back three, and then you've got Pereira and Lode maybe. So you almost become a little more offensive. Maybe we like just subconsciously we shift tactically where we have more numbers forward now.
Yeah, and Lloyd, you mentioned Pereira. I think he had his best game in a Loons jersey this last weekend against LA Galaxy. He was impactful in the attack. He was all over the place in that midfield. He was popping up, and on the radio broadcast, Dan Terra and myself just kept mentioning his name because it felt like he was always on the ball, especially in that second half. He had an impressive game on Saturday.
And what about that chance he created for Bongi?
Yeah.
When Bongi had the double chance, he would get open or get the ball out of his feet. He always had his head up, looking forward. And him again on the defensive side is pretty good as well. Like, he seems pretty two-way player. He had some nice touches. I remember a little back heel he had earlier in the game, and I feel like he seems more comfortable this year. You know, it's only a few games in, but he seems a lot more comfortable, and I'm excited. He's probably going to get more opportunity now as well with the Dotson injury, and it's probably a good time in that sense that he and Lloyd is there. Honestly, the squad is in a good place. When we're mentioning these names, you've got Owen Jean, who was signed for a couple million as well. You know, Dotson is going to be hard to replace, but there's other bodies there that are capable of doing different things.
And there's some flexibility in the summer window as well. I think Pereira had an outstanding game too, Jonathan. I will give one, just like, we are trying to pride ourselves as a club that is going to be great at set pieces, and I was disappointed with his service. And he's got a beautiful left foot, and it's gorgeous, and he's got to execute. Like, we need to be good in every phase of the game, particularly in a game where we're missing 4 or 5 starters, particularly in a game where the Galaxy are probably the worst team in the league at set pieces. We've got to make sure that he understands it's got to get over that first guy. It's got to go into a dangerous spot. We've got to create second phases of attacks. And so as much as I love Pereira's game, one of the areas he's on the field for is that set piece place, and I thought he was a little off with his kicks and set pieces.
I'm glad you're calling him out as well, Manny. It's not all rainbows and all that. Okay.
I mean, to the point
I respect that. I mean,
and to the point that Eric switched and had Rosales taking a corner at the end of the game because he didn't have confidence.
Yes.
So, by the way, I've seen him every day. He can do it. I mean, it's
he can do it.
A mental thing. You know? So yeah.
So let me ask you this, Manny. It would be unfair to a lot of longtime Loons faithful if I didn't bring this up, because you were his coach back in the NASL days. Christian Ramirez getting the start against the Galaxy, and I know this is the opposition scoring a goal, but it's Christian Ramirez scoring a goal at Allianz Field. What was that moment like for you, since you had, out of the three of us, you have the most connection to Christian Ramirez?
Well, it's Christian. Like I said, the crazy thing about Christian is he used to be a center midfielder in college a little bit in youth soccer, and then became a forward, and he's got that cleverness in him.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just your, like, I'm going to run the near post and try to box my way and do it. Like, he's got a little bit of, like, when I get in good spots, for A, he makes the near post run, which is some forwards just don't like doing, as, and he's a big guy. And B, he's got the ability to be like, ooh, Shamir's a little bit out of position, Dugan's a little bit late, and it's him. I mean, he's not the most athletic guy. You kind of forget about him, and the next thing you know, when he gives a little bit of time and space, he's very clever. So it was a great goal. I mean, I was a little frustrated.
I like that goal.
Yeah. You're a forward. Of course you do. I mean, that was just like.
I was a winger. I got to correct you there. I've let you say forward a couple times. I was a winger. I actually didn't like playing forward. I hated my back to goal. Kind of like how the Minnesota strikers are. I couldn't do that. I would have got bulldozed over at 5'9", 5'10". So,
but I mean, that you're comfortable making runs in the box, and you come from inside. I would just say that I was happy for him. It's been a great career. I mean, he's now really officially kind of on the tail end of a career that a lot of people doubted him. A lot of people didn't believe he could play here, play in Europe, play back here again. And everywhere he goes, he seems to contribute and score goals, which is what he's been for us too. And mixed emotions for sure, but happy for him.
I think that's 3 goals in 3 games for him, if I'm keeping track correctly, across all competitions, because he had the one in CONCACAF Champions Cup and one in Portland.
He's in form right now. Yeah. He's definitely in form right now. Didn't celebrate, keeping some respect for the Loons and everything, which was obviously.
I think Lloyd's. I'm going to end with it was tough because you've done both 2 games in a row for us, right? This is going to be the second one in a row. I did San Jose as well. We did San Jose. Okay, so you didn't do Kansas City. Well, we walked off the field, dropping 4 points.
Yeah.
Kansas City were up 3-0. And by the way, that was the first time ever, I think, in the history of all of our iterations of the club that we ever gave up a 3-goal lead.
Yeah.
Which is hard to
swallow. Those are hard to come back from. The next morning, everyone's so upset.
And then credit to Eric, credit to the coaching staff, credit to the players. Going into the Galaxy game, I think on paper, I was like, oh my gosh, this will be hard to get a point or 3 points based on 5 starters out. Hassani getting injured in the first half. But there's no doubt in my mind, expected goals, we blew out the Galaxy. Second half, we were so solid. And to walk off the field not getting the points, I will say this, it sets up a big game this Saturday because we're playing kind of an RSL team that is a little bit weaker. And then you just also have, we got to win the games we should win.
Weaker than normal, you mean?
What's that?
RSL weaker than normal, as in,
Yes.
they haven't got
Yes.
a DP striker.
Correct. They're just a little bit low right now. I mean, obviously, Luna will be scary because he played so well for the U.S., but I feel like, and then we just dropped 2 games that we should win. And I think if we want to be the team that's to be seriously at the top of the West, we got to win.
They better be hungry. They better be hungry for it.
Yeah.
We got to be hungry to walk off the field with 3 points. We can pat ourselves in the back, play 2 good games, but let's make sure we put an asterisk, say we can't keep walking off these games with ties when we should be winning.
Yeah, and I think that's where there's some underlying frustration with those 2 games because you look at the 2 teams, man, you said that those are 2 games you should win based off of how those 2 teams have performed. It's LA Galaxy and Sporting Kansas City who have 3 combined points on the season, and you gave them 2 of them, and that's there's certainly some frustration from that, and now leads to a Real Salt Lake game where you guys have talked about this is a Real Salt Lake team that's a little bit weaker than normal. They've been up and down this season. Loss, win, loss, win, loss. They're coming off a 1-0 loss to Dallas at the weekend. They'll be without Arieth Piol, who had a red card in the 23rd minute, so they had to endure most of the game down a man to Dallas at the weekend. But this is a team that also lost in CONCACAF Champions Cup to a Costa Rican side. Then following week beat Seattle 2-0. Lloyd, I don't know what to make of this Real Salt Lake team.
I don't know what to make of them either at the moment. And for all those reasons, that was good analysis. For all those reasons that you were saying, we're not quite sure who they are, but it's like what Manny said. What you do know is they're not as scary at the moment. It's not Gomez and Chicho. Like that was frightening, playing against Gomez and Chicho. Now they've got even Piol, who's, they've got Ajago and Piol up top. I actually like what Piol does. He's out the game, obviously, with the red card. Ajago, it's not a DP caliber, but he could be a threat in his own way. Against the 3 centre-backs that you guys have, I feel like that would be quite difficult. It's Diego Luna coming back and the excitement and he's coming back with his chest out, feeling good. Generally, I just feel like he plays like that anyway, a little chip on his shoulder. So coming back from the national team, you always have a bit of a step when you're coming back. You're feeling like, everyone's going to see what I've done. I imagine him to be on form. And, that is probably the toughest part about their team right now when defending. It's Luna. Diogo is coming into his own a little bit, and Marchuk on the right. But Luna's the main one that kind of connects it all. But it's not as scary. It's not as scary as before, and it's a good time to probably play them because I think they will be signing more players as well.
Man. Yeah, I agree with Lloyd there. I think my brain goes to the Minnesota United psychology, which is, we just dropped points in 2 games we should have won. So I really hope we come out this weekend hungry to figure out a way to walk off with 3 points. I'm nervous about Luna. I mean, he looked great. My U.S. soccer fandom is like, woo, that's a kid that's playing with some heart. Mm-hmm. And if he takes that, and then I think about Pablo Mastroeni when he gets adversity, he doesn't back down. He asks his guys to really fight in corners and really start to show that no matter what, they're going to be tough. So I think we're going to have a team that's going to really really hungry to fight and show Pablo that they're more than what they've been to start the season.
I think they're fight. They're going to fight.
Yeah, glad.
You're going to have to earn it regardless. Like, you're going to have to earn it. Yeah.
100%. And Glad and Vera always been a good tandem back there. I think that back four is always, if we're not sharp going forward, if we're not hungry to create space and do stuff, they can shut us down.
Hey, so again, their goalkeeper is ridiculously good.
Yes.
It's Rafa Cabral. I don't know if you've seen some of the saves he's making.
Yeah.
He behind Luna, it might be Rafa Cabral as the second. I don't know if you saw his penalty save in the last game, and he made another ridiculous save against Dallas. And
that was against Acosta, right?
Acosta penalty save, and he saved another one to someone else's shot. Leget's shot got down well.
Yeah, it is hard to say too, though, because they played down 70 minutes down, man. I mean, that's really hard for me in my brain to assess how well starting 11 versus them battling, although at home, losing 1-0. It doesn't kind of count just because they got the red card. So it was a little bit of a harsh red card in my mind too, actually. But I mean, I think their back four's solid. They're always tough to break down. So it
Gonna have to earn it. You're gonna have to earn it, you guys, this weekend.
Well, you mentioned that. I mean, you look at the last, 6 games between these two sides, including those 2 games in the playoffs. Regulation over the last 6 games, I believe it's 6, it may be actually more than that, have ended in draws between these two teams. The last time either side got a result in this I guess back and forth rivalry was in 2022. It's been that long since either side found a win in this game. So what's going to be the difference maker here this week, Lloyd?
Gonna be the difference this week? Oh no, there's no easy questions here, is there? I wanted Manny to have that one first. The difference maker this week. I feel like it could be the strike force, coming back, and what you were talking about, Jonathan, about them two not playing together or scoring together. They've both been here or there. Yeboah was injured. From a Minnesota point of view, I feel like that is difficult to deal with, those two. I feel like that is an area where it's like Glad and Vera probably used to defending one center back who's a handful. 2 that's a handful. I feel like that could be really difficult. Also, it's the Minnesota stuff that's hard to defend, the set pieces and the ring in the box on corners and long throws. Boxall's back. You got your long throw. Like, I feel like it's a tough game. If I'm playing Minnesota, I'm probably more concerned playing Minnesota than the other way around in my head, because Minnesota's very well drilled with what they do. If that answers the question. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it did. I think I'm just going to pile on top. I actually agree. You guys know, usually I say either our defense or our winning the midfield. I do think it is the Kelvin coming off a brace and Tani coming off scoring against the U.S. and winning international game. That they should have.
Couldn't be better form for those two, right?
Yeah, I just feel like that could create some awesome just energy, getting forward, creating chances. My only caveat is Luna. I'm nervous a little bit that he could come on the field.
Yes.
That want to take on everybody. And he's one of the few players in the league at a young age. And again, for our fans to go watch him live, it's so fun because you look at him, you're like, how does this guy play soccer? Like, how is he a soccer player?
The body type is quite, when you look
how
at
is he
it,
so quick and shifty and he's when you look at him, you're like, what? No,
there's something he's got in his mind. We talked about the moxie of Yeboah. Like, he's almost got that, stick the chest out. I can handle this. I'm 21 or 22, but I can handle this. Give me all the pressure. He doesn't feel pressure like that, So that is, you got to keep him quiet. I mean, that's easier said than done. He seems to drift all over as well. He'll start on the left, go to the right, end up back on the left. So it's not really like just a one-on-one matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this one. Do we think Rosales gets back in the lineup? We saw him come back as a substitute late in the game against the Galaxy. Good to see him back. You guys mentioned that earlier. Do we think he's back in the lineup now going forward, Manny? Or did Anthony Marcanic put a little bit in there that Eric Ramsey can say, hey, Rosales, take your time coming back?
Tough one. I mean, it's good because I think Anthony gives you. It depends on Eric's mindset for this game how the season plays out. Ultimately, like, Joseph's going to give us a little bit more offensively. Markanovic has been steady defensively, a little bit harder for him to get forward. But if he feels like Bongi gets forward now, and I want that safety net. I think Lloyd's kind of said it. Right now, the roster's in a good place. That Eric has some tough decisions to make, and he's got to think about it. Not only what I've already been impressed is he's been rotating because he's like, guys, we got a deep squad. I know what. So sometimes he just rotates to rotate. It's not even tactics. He just says, I want to rotate. So my answer would be, I'm not sure. Again, I'm happy with either right now, and I feel good about it.
Yeah, this should be certainly a fun one. Lloyd, excited to hear you on the broadcast for it. Kickoff at 7:30, pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself on the radio side, starting at 7 p.m. on 1500 ESPN and the Score North mobile app. Looking forward to this one, boys, and should be a fun one. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thanks for having me on, man. I had fun, man. Anytime. Let me know. I'll be back.
Enjoy Miami.
We'll do.
Lloyd, greatly appreciate you stopping by. It was excellent to have you on the podcast with us this week. Loons fans, come back next week. We'll be recapping the RSL game and previewing New York City FC next weekend. Looking forward to that, and we'll talk to you next week.